Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you all for making time to be with us this morning. As always, this meeting will be recorded and will be loaded up on YouTube and sent out hopefully later today, but definitely by the beginning of next week, along with all the links that are in it and any other material. So if you need to take a break to make a cup of coffee or get a cup of tea, just know that you can come back around to this. So welcome everyone. I'm going to move on to our agenda and we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. First, we just have some welcoming announcements, some recognition of some accomplishments from some individuals within our community and on the Moz board. We're going to talk a little bit about the board member changes, both our outgoing board members and those that will be joining us. Then I'm going to talk you a bit through what we did at the Moz retreat and some of the incredible developments that have come out of that work. And I will pass it on over to Kristen Eggleston, our treasurer, to talk to you about Moz's amazing financial state right now. And then we're really lucky to be joined by Melissa Denmark, and I see Audrey Levine is here as well to give us an update on Smooth Transitions work group and all that they are doing. And then we'll move through our committee reports, much like we have done in years past, and you will get an update from every committee, as well as action items, calls to action, reminders of important dates, things you can do if you would like to get involved, and then we will close it on out with some time for questions or comments, and hopefully be out of here by noon, or maybe, if luck would have it, even a little bit earlier. All right, next slide, please. So just to start out, a really big thank you to some of our outgoing board members: Beth Arcease, Deborah Gleisner, Gabby Price, Susan Rainwater, Lisa Stotts, and Elliot Tillman. Some of these folks have been on the board for years and years. We are so thrilled for them to be moving on to their next adventures and so grateful for the time that they have all contributed. Beth has served as an officer on the executive committee. Gabby ran our development communications committee. Lisa, as you all know, has been instrumental in continuing education and conferences. These folks have just made an immeasurable impact on Moz, and they will be missed. And yet we are very excited for them to have some new experiences and some freed up time. So thank you so much for all the time you have given and committed to Moz. I also wanted to take a minute to welcome our potential new board member, Natalie Jolly, who is on today. I believe I saw her on our screen. You can read a bit about Natalie's full bio, but we also have tweaked this year the way that we did a full election because we don't have a full board. So we are not at our cap for board members. We will still elect, but there is no reason to not welcome Natalie to this board. So she attended our retreat. She has already made fantastic contributions and given tremendous insight and perspective. We feel really lucky to have her and her expertise here. There will be a link that I believe Jessica is going to drop into the chat for you all to go ahead and vote Natalie in formally, but please note that we are not at full board capacity, so we are ready to welcome her with open arms. I also wanted to use this opportunity to remind folks that this is my last term as president and on the board, and Jessica's as well. This is also Kristen Eggleston's last term as an executive committee officer. She is currently our treasurer. We hope that under the guidance of a new executive director, we are going to be able to usher in a new era of board composition and roles and break down some barriers that may have existed in the past to board participation. So on that note of all these transitions, I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge some members in our community. Tremendous thanks for many, many reasons to Liz Fay and Elliot Tillman, who pretty much single-handedly spearheaded the update of the indications document. It did have a lot of input from community, but the baseline of all that work and all of that writing and all of that research was Liz and Elliot. And they did it while juggling school and starting a practice and families and lives. And we are incredibly grateful for the work they put in and the tremendous accomplishment that that document is. We are very proud of that document. Liz and Elliot, again, have been instrumental in the changes to continuing education that occurred this year and the move to the webinar format. Under Lisa's guidance and Lisa's support, they did a tremendous job with continuing education this year. And I'm gonna not preempt our CE committee report because I wanna make sure Lisa can speak to everything that group has accomplished, but that committee is largely the reason that Moz is in such a comfortable financial position right now. And we would truly not be where we are if we had not had the work of that committee plugging away at continuing to make our educational offerings more broad and more expansive. So incredibly grateful for that entire committee and specifically for Lisa, Liz, and Elliot. I also wanted to acknowledge our entire data committee. There was a huge publication of work of Moz data in the OB Green Journal. So a particular acknowledgement to the primary author of that, Elizabeth Nethery, and co-authors Dr. Wendy Gordon and Audrey Levine. But I know the entire data committee was instrumental in setting that up. And I know you all as members have done tremendous work over the years to contribute your data and have made publications like that possible. So thank you to the work of that committee. Thank you in particular to those 3 individuals. It was incredibly groundbreaking. We look forward to having continued conversations and using that data at Lobby Day. So thank you so much for that. That was not the only publication that came out this year. Kristen Efland, Karen Hayes, Tara Lawal, Britt Zell, Rhonda Lee Grantham, and Megan Kuntz had 2 publications last year, one in the Journal of Midwifery and Women's Health and one in Birth. Those 2 publications both highlighted Washington State's midwifery scope of practice and midwifery integration and legislative advocacy. Those have also been tremendously helpful and instrumental in helping people understand what LMs are, what we do, and in our lobbying efforts. Britt Zell, who was one of the co-authors on those works, also wrote a tremendous master's project that was a critical component of the Sunrise review that we drafted for scope expansion and the bill that will be introduced this year. Thank you so much to Susie Myers, Audrey Levine, and Karen Hayes, who along with the Ledge Paul team and several board members helped review that bill language, helped us refine it, caught some things that were really critical from a historical perspective in particular that we had not accounted for. So I am really grateful for your mentorship and your expertise on the bill writing. Special thanks to Emily Stevens, who has served on the Moz board before, is not right now, but she is the data committee chair and she will be outgoing and moving on to new adventures. She has run an incredibly robust, functional, amazing committee over on data. She's been a tremendous leader. She will be so missed and we are so happy to have had some time with her. I also wanted to acknowledge that we have some folks in our community that are reaching big milestones of retirement. Valerie Sasson, Kathy Luch, Lynn Hughes, I know you are all retiring or just recently retired or in the process of it, and all have served in Moz leadership, served on the Moz board, been stalwart supporters of Moz's work, and we are grateful and excited for you for this huge transition. And thank you for the time you've given to Washington State Midwifery. I also wanted to thank the folks who participated in several open meetings we had regarding Moz's restructure, especially Amy Frazier and Maya Johnson, who showed up consistently week after week, offered incredible feedback, incredible insight, gave up their time to help provide some guidance on the ways in which Moz can grow and adapt for the changing circumstances of our world. I'm really grateful for the time you've given and thank you so much for your expertise. And then my particular and personal thanks to this board. We got smaller. We are little and nimble and feisty and scrappy, to borrow a word from Louisa that she uses frequently, and I love her for it. This board continues to show up. Even in the midst of Jessica and I taking a leave of absence, this board pulled together and stayed united and got the work done. I'm incredibly grateful for all of you. I know you get paid the big bucks to do this, so thank you for showing up month after month. And my particular gratitude to Jessica Swan and Kristen Eggleston, our very small, little nimble executive committee who have kept me on my feet, have kept Moz functioning. Kristen stepped in at a very last minute to be our treasurer. I'm incredibly grateful for the work you both do, and I want you to be acknowledged because I think you do a lot behind the scenes that doesn't get seen. So that is some of our accomplishments this year. I'm sure I forgot somebody. I worked really hard to make a complete list, and I apologize if I did. But thank you so much for contributing to the growth of this organization and this community. Okay. I'm going to move us forward to some of the things we did during the retreat, and then I'm going to stop talking because nobody wants to hear me for 2 hours. So
well, I'm going to pause you, Jen, really quick, just to say that the person doing the thanking never gets a thank you. So I definitely want to pause and acknowledge you as our president at the helm this last year. I don't know how long it's been, forever, pre-COVID. And we wouldn't be here without you. And it's been a year of, I know, personal and professional and worldwide strife. So we are so grateful to you and for being here and supporting us and keeping us all together. And it's a delight to work with you. So thank you.
Thank you. That was unexpected. And I will not cry today, or not yet this early in the morning. Okay. Thank you so much, Jessica. Y'all are the loves of my lives and you know it. So, okay. Moving on, we've restructured our retreats every year to make them incredibly productive. It helps us work as a group and it helps us chip away at kind of the never-ending to-do list that exists in nonprofit organizations. And this year was no exception. So we had an incredibly productive retreat. One of the biggest thing that came out of that retreat was the fact that we are ready and moving forward with hiring a part-time executive director, which I know has been a long time necessary move for Moz to make. We are not the first board to contemplate this, but we are excited to see steps forward in making it happen. So we have created rubrics and interview questions, and we have created a job description, and it is all out in the world, and we are looking forward to getting incredible applicants. We ask that you share it far and wide. We are hoping to hire this position by the end of the year, which means that this might be, ideally, if we do this well, the last time that we have a president and a vice president and a treasurer running the annual general meeting, because we will have an executive director and leadership of that. We really want to impress when you're thinking about candidates or considering applying yourself, that this position will be responsible for bringing money into the organization. We know that there is fundraising opportunities and grant opportunities that are out there for organizations like ours and for the health of childbearing people and infants, but we are at a limited capacity to go capture those things. And so we trust and hope that our executive director will be seeking those out. This position can be done remotely. And we plan to work with the new executive director on an equity audit and restructure of what board composition and roles look like, again, with the goal of reducing barriers to board participation and finding some ways to decentralize organizational power. So if you know of a fantastic candidate for this, it is currently a part-time position. We really hope that with the fundraising and grant opportunities, we can extend this to full-time. But we're starting here, and it's an important step forward, and we really look forward to introducing a new executive director to you, hopefully by the end of the year or beginning of next year. The other thing that we accomplished at the board retreat was a quick update to a few of our bylaws, but not a significant overhaul, mostly to make sure we could be in compliance with the hiring of executive director. And I'm going to move this to Louisa to discuss with us about what the work group did in addressing bylaws issues.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so one of the things that happened in the last 12 months is everyone's been kind of looking towards potentially restructuring some of the leadership and hiring an executive director, as we realized in our examination of our existing bylaws that we had a couple of issues. The first was that inadvertently, though absolutely deservedly, we had hired someone who is not an active licensed midwife into the hired, appointed, voted, elected, someone who is not a licensed midwife to the position of president, which was not in fact in accordance with our bylaws as they exist. The board came to the conclusion that in order to, because we're moving towards a really significant re-examination and restructure of the organization, that the bylaws obviously are about to be really significantly overhauled by whoever becomes the executive director and the incoming team. With that being the case, we did feel, though, it was necessary to amend the bylaws to reflect the fact that right now our president is not a licensed midwife, but not only is that okay, it's actually been completely vital to the organization, certainly in the last 2 years. So with that in mind, we made a couple of very minor adjustments to the existing bylaws, basically codifying the inclusion of an executive director into the language, and also simply that the board president must be a member of the organization and not necessarily a licensed midwife. It also, the bylaws changes also gave the board the ability to hire staff sufficient that we're able to appoint an executive director into that very important role. So these changes were really intended to be, I mean, they are in fact very minor changes to the existing document, and they really just sort of set us up to be able to proceed with an enthusiastic overhaul to really bring the organization into a more modern and forward-facing place moving forward. This is the first time this document has been revised in any significant way since 2016. So it was needed. Continued changes will be occurring as an executive director is hired. And in the meantime, we have legitimized our fearless leader, Jen, who, without whom none of this has been possible. So that's just, you know, we're telling you all of this, obviously, in the interest of transparency. Do members not vote on the bylaw change? The bylaws were previously amended in 2016 to allow the board members to amend the bylaws ourselves, because the membership appoints the board members to do that. So that we actually did discuss that in depth, and did in fact discover that the bylaws allowed the board members to make those changes. Yeah. So, and we have to obviously give the membership notice that has occurred. But yeah, happy to talk about that later on if people have other questions or comments about it.
Thanks, Louisa. I also just wanted to make clear that in conversations about shifting the bylaws around who could be president, I was recused from both the votes and the conversations. So those votes were made with a board that I was not present for.
Sorry, Jen, I should have mentioned that, but yeah, that's in fact the case.
The lawyer procedure person in me wants to make sure that that is really clear, that we recognized the potential conflict of interest. So I was not involved in any of that work. Okay. Moving forward with our treasurer report, and Kristen, I'm going to tag you in.
Hi, everyone. I just want to also reiterate everyone's thank yous, and I'm going to get into these things a little bit as we go on. I came into this with lots of background, midwife and some business knowledge, but I'm not an accountant. And So it's this treasurer position was kind of a stretch and a stress. Next slide, please, Jessica. So I sometimes, you know, from the Karen Strange things, you know, look at the happy puppy pictures. I mean, that's helped me out a lot this year. And so I just always look for a little bit of humor to help me get through the hard parts. And this sort of meme kind of helped me do that, think about things and kind of how our board and people on it have sort of reacted to everything. So, you know, the board changes and lots of turnover since I've been on the board in, you know, the positions in the executive committee, that really is very hard to keep everything moving forward. And also this year, this restructuring work that has been asked for and called for and is really necessary for us it's just another bit of changing things up that we as a board have always had to do. You know, it also became very clear in this year that an executive director for the sustainability of our organization is essential, really. And it's been something we've been coming to for quite some time. And it has been my biggest goal as a treasurer to make happen. It's probably been my biggest goal as a board member to make happen. But, you know, honestly this year with all of the board members' lives that are all the things that 2021 is, and then now we're going to give hours of free time to this organization. It's very hard to do. And again, in 2021, with this random COVID thing that some of us have heard about, you know, we just really have had to focus on maintaining the organization as opposed to really growing it. With that said, the Ledge Paul and data have done so much in this sort of outward look and at least not, if not growing, setting us up for some really big growth in the future, as well as I cannot say enough about conference and what Liz and Elliot and Lisa have been able to achieve. This pivot to the really great webinars that they have done has made every bit of difference to where we are now. So next slide, please. So again, I just wanted to give a big shout out to the conference committee and also to the executive committee and board. Everyone has done some really important things. Brielle has been our executive assistant, and Joan is she's not actually on our board or anything like that, but she's the accountant and has been just really with us. And she's not even here today, but I wanted to say thanks about that. And just to all the people who showed up. Again, a board, MAS cannot work without people showing up. And we need membership to show up and we need board to show up. And so thank you. Next slide. And also it's really helpful to be thankful in 2021 for all the things we do have. So first off, our financial status is actually really very solid. We largely due to two factors, the conference committee's just outstanding performance, and then our just consistent membership. So thanks to everyone who continues being a member. We don't have money to burn. And again, you know, our goal is this executive director. Our main income has been, you know, membership and conference. And then we just have historically low donations. And this year, and in the past 2 years, really, our donations have mostly centered around the conferences and being able to donate to a common pot that people can use to register for conferences. So that's really even under conference. Our main expenses are really the same, thankfully, year after year. You know, we have our lobbyist, Amber, who is just fantastic, and other Ledge Paul related items. Our executive assistant, general administration, everything from the faxes to Zoom accounts to postage, etc. Also, we participate in data. So that OB COPE connection for MOS members who contribute to MANA stats, that goes over to OB COPE. And then also donations to places like Smooth Transitions, and then there are other smaller chunks. Like we've mentioned, this executive director is just really it's about the benefit to our organization and the sustainability for all of us, really, and even the organization being here, but certainly the people who are on the board and come. There needs to be something different because this isn't working. And we're also, we want to change this leadership model and this structure. And this is a way to make that happen and take it out of this consistent small pool of midwives, one after another. We do have to recognize that it is a higher expense, but also a higher income for this person. So we'll have the salary expense, but then the income from the grant writing and donations and other income that they're able to generate. So the goal has been to get an executive director and then also make sure that this treasurer position is handover ready to whatever comes next. So there's been some cleanup and organization that's needed to happen around just how the GL codes and things. And so starting to have these regular meetings with the bookkeeper and then the executive assistant and soon the executive director, and updating our manual for how do you do the treasurer job. So those are the two main goals, ED and hand it over. And next slide, I think, is just if anyone has questions or wants to contact. There you go.
Any questions for Kristen about MOS's financial state?
All right.
Kristen, there is actually a question in the chat for you. Is there a profit and loss to look at?
I just saw that. I don't have it pulled up, and I can pull that up while Melissa's talking.
Perfect. Let's do that. Why don't you pull that up, Kristen, and we'll move to Smooth Transitions and come back around to that question. Thank you. I'm really happy. It's been a minute since we've been able to be in front of Smooth Transitions, who usually comes to our conferences, and we haven't had a conference in a couple of years. So we're really excited to hear about the work that they are doing. And thank you, Melissa, for being here.
Yeah, thank you all. I looked at the participant list and I feel like most people I know and are pretty familiar with our program. So I'm going to really move pretty quickly. I have so much to say. For those who don't know me, my name is Melissa Denmark and I'm the program coordinator for Smooth Transitions. I've been in this role for the last like 4.5 years. And I just added it up. I've been a midwife for 21 and I retired my private practice this year in the end of January. Enough about me. Smooth Transitions, it's a quality improvement program based at the Foundation for Healthcare Quality in Seattle. I feel like most of you know that we started Smooth Transitions in 2009 with the purpose to enhance the safety of hospital transfers from planned community births. And we've also worked with probably around 15 other states now at this point in helping them replicate a Smooth Transitions-like program, which has been really, really great. For those of you who aren't familiar with the program, please go check out our website. It is fairly new and it has so many great resources. Well, there'll be a link to that at the end of the presentation. So next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, this is the list of supporters we have. And thank you, Moz, for being an ongoing supporter for us. We really also do, operate on a low budget, and, it's really important. We just value Moz's support. We also get support from WARM. It's this multi-stakeholder support that's super important. In particular, the involvement from the Washington State Hospital Association has really helped grow the program and has underscored the message that the safety of hospital transfers must really be addressed at a systems level. Yeah, and Audrey is, we're getting financial support. We also get in-kind support. So for an example, tomorrow is the Washington State Obstetrical Association meeting, and we'll have a table there, and they've comped us the table. So it's not all like a financial donation. Some groups do, and some do things like tables. Smooth Transitions is also led by a work group, and it's an interdisciplinary team. We meet quarterly to provide direction for the program. There's representation from OB, nurse midwives, EMS, licensed midwives, WISHA, the Hospital Association, Pediatrics, Neonatology, MFM, Nursing, Department of Health, Consumer, and we're looking for a doula. So lots of groups. Next slide, please. Really quickly, this is our mission and goals. We want to make sure that when we talk about shared responsibility, we really mean it. We talk to hospitals and we focus on what they can do to improve transfers. We're equally committed to working with midwives around best transfers, best practices around transfers, as well as EMS. So there's lots of work to do on this. We all know that. Next slide, please. A little bit about the nuts and bolts of the program. And I do feel like most of you are pretty familiar with this. We start with a hospital presentation. After that initial presentation, if the hospital decides to proceed with the program, the next step is to develop or is to identify a clinician champion, really someone who's willing to be that point person of contact between the hospital, the community midwives, and myself. We also select this person, kind of a similar role for the community midwives, that liaison role. And these are the people that help set up the perinatal transfer committee. And again, this is kind of all parts of the system in the hospital and all the community midwives who would be potentially transferring to that particular hospital. And one of the first things they do, their task to do together, is to draft transfer protocols for both the birthing person and the newborn. And that's really the start of the relationship building, I would say. We encourage folks in the beginning of this process to adopt the Home Birth Summit best practice transfer guidelines, as far as like really centering the patient and clarifying expectations for both sides. And we have lots of tools and templates and resources on our website to help hospitals along, and a lot of involvement with me. So next slide, please. Okay, so kind of taking a closer look at these perinatal transfer committee meetings. A lot of us on this call today are participating in them. It's important that they meet regularly. And I would say that there are some hospitals that get there and then they get stuck. It's that regular interaction in a non-transfer scenario where you can really learn from each other, build relationships, share experiences. What happens at these meetings, we're examining what's working, what's not, either with protocols or just certain transfers in particular. There's a lot of opportunities for kind of expanding the relationship, either in like sharing skills trainings or continuing education. We're seeing a lot of growth beyond the intrapartum and the immediate postpartum and newborn transfer. We're seeing midwife to midwife transfers being developed, opportunities for versions, iron infusion, preterm labor assessments, therapeutic rest, collaborative care around like higher risk clients or shared care, EMR access, that kind of thing. So it's been really great to see that relationship really deepen and develop. Next slide, please. So we also, Smooth Transitions has developed online survey tools to capture qualitative data on hospital transfers. And we're using this rich data to get a 360-degree view on how transfers are going from the perspective of nurses, receiving providers, community midwife, the patient. We also have an EMS survey. And so the idea is that this data gets de-identified and reviewed regularly at these perinatal transfer committee meetings. And this is just a really valuable opportunity to provide and receive feedback. So just a reminder for any of you, please complete your surveys. It's always a task. We're trying to get community midwives to participate and encourage their clients to do so as well. So collecting quantitative data, kind of outcome and statistic data on transfers has been more of a challenge. There's not a single repository for data for the whole state of Washington. This is why Smooth Transitions has been really involved in the development of the community birth module within OB-COPE. There was a call to get community midwives all over the state, not just MAWS members, to participate in the development of that. We had many meetings this summer, kind of adding on to the OB-COPE most recent version of their database and customizing it for community birth. At this point, all of that work has been sent out to the people that actually, do the development, the building, and hopefully, a version will be available early 2022 for beta testing. And we're going to also just encourage all midwives all over the state to participate in that. It's really important we have buy-in from everyone. So, so that's on the horizon. Maybe Emily will talk a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. Okay, so other things that we're doing besides, staying involved in the development of the community birth module is that we just recently received CQIP status for Smooth Transitions under the umbrella of the foundation. And so that kind of means two things for us. One is that our perinatal transfer committee meetings will be able to be protected. And for those of you who've been attending them, sometimes the data we see coming out of our surveys is pretty detailed and identifiable, and stuff comes up in those meetings, and we really just need it to be a safe and protected environment. And we have some hospitals holding back on even sharing data until we have that protection. So we're right now working on our legal agreements to make that happen. So we're actually getting close, which is great. The other thing is that we're going to be offering more of an a neutral third-party external review. This will be available to Smooth Transition member hospitals and community-based midwives in Washington who want to supplement their own perinatal quality assurance program with a more objective review process. So this would be a multidisciplinary review team comprising of members of our work group that will review cases submitted for objective review by parties not involved in the specific case. And these cases may focus more on kind of more controversial things, scope of practice issues. They would involve a thorough review of records, interviews, if relevant, a literature review, and upon completion, we would develop recommendations for all parties. So that's pretty exciting. We have a lot of hospitals and midwives that have been expressing interest in that. So we're working on it. All this takes time. We're also very close to developing a Washington licensed midwife infographic. And this is really going to be a tool available to everyone. It'll be up on our website. I would love to have it completed for the WSOA meeting tomorrow, because this is going to be great for just informing, you know, different parts of the medical community about LMs in Washington. It'll be great for hospital presentations. If you're meeting with your local EMS providers, it will be a really good resource for that. So that should be available here pretty soon. We're also excited to, we've been working on how to, you know, deal with EMS issues for a long time. We just recently partnered with Karen Hayes, and will you share that infographic, Melissa? I don't have it right now, but it will go up on the website, and I'll put it up somehow to let people know to go there and find it. So EMS, we've partnered with Karen. She is affiliated with a group called Pronto International. They do a lot of great work on all over the world with kind of emergency skills training. And we're trying to partner and develop a EMS LM module. And we're just still formulating that, but it's really exciting to have these partners and groups that are experienced and interested in this work. Next slide, please. The last comment I did not read. I'll come back to the chat box. I still have more to cover. Okay, this is a list of all of the hospitals and CNM groups that have received initial presentations. So you look on this list, and that's a lot. Not everybody is, not everyone on this list is actually moved forward in the program. So we'll go to the next slide. I have a chart here. I would say these are probably our model sites. So some of the hospitals and groups on the first slide really had an initial presentation and they were stuck. They never moved forward. And when I say move forward, I have these columns here. You know, most everybody has developed protocols. They're having meetings and they're participating in surveys, you know, at different levels. Our most recent hospital that that we're onboarding is St. Peter's, and they're in the process of work. St. Peter's and Olympia, and they're in the process of working on their protocols right now, probably to have our first meeting, including hospital staff and community midwives in January. So that's really exciting and happening. So the stats piece, it's a column that I think only at like Prov Everett, we're manually collecting statistics and kind of giving like an annual report on how many transfers, you know, maternal, neonatal, are they going to nurse midwives, there'll be hospitalists and some outcome data. But the community birth module will be just instrumental in giving us really great data on transfers. We have lots of hospitals that are actually participating in midwife to midwife transfer, which has really kind of been our gold standard. And we have more and more hospitals that are open to and figuring out how to give community midwives EMR access in kind of a read-only way to, you know, just help. It helps with everything, especially around discharge. So if you see a hospital or a group here that you transfer to, but you're not going to the perinatal transfer committee meetings, please let me know, because I can connect you to that community midwife liaison and we'll get you in on those meetings, because it's so important to just have involvement from all of the community midwives that would transfer there. Other hospitals that aren't on the list that I'm targeting, just FYI for people, would be several of the Swedish hospitals, Olympic Medical Center, UW Montlake, Confluence in Wenatchee, would be Skagit Valley, Virginia Mason, 3 hospitals in the Tri-Cities, St. Mary's in Walla Walla, coming back around to Multicare Auburn, Providence Centralia, Samaritan in Moses Lake, Good Samaritan. And I'd really like to push the hospitals in the Spokane area and Tacoma to participate. So lots on my to-do list. Next slide, please. This is my, this is the Smooth Transitions website, and it's not current on the MOZ website. So we need to get that like connected correctly. And my email, I also have a Gmail account, but this is my kind of official Smooth Transitions email. So please reach out to me if you have questions about the program, or if you're thinking you want your hospital to participate. You know, I don't know how much time I have. I wanted to just mention one last thing related to COVID. You know, it's been really hard on the hospital end. I'm going to these perinatal transfer committee meetings, and I'm hearing about how hard it is on the midwives and to having to make multiple calls to multiple hospitals before they can get people in. It's hard for the hospitals too. It's hard for me to work with hospitals. I feel like we get going and then we have my contact I've done great with is all of a sudden she's not there anymore. You know, hospitals, some just don't have the bandwidth for this. And then others do. I'm so happy about Overlake. They've really had a huge turn. They used to not be a great hospital to transfer to, and they're really showing great improvement. In the middle of it all, St. Peter's and Olympia is managing to pull it off, and they're doing great. We have so many examples of really good hospitals. St. Michael's in Silverdale, also just a model hospital. Prav Everett has a long history of doing well, and some aren't. I guess I can just say we just all keep working. I am trying to bring on more and more hospitals, as I'm hearing that you know, midwives are struggling to get people in. And so, you know, I'm pushing. Some hospitals just won't budge. Some can't seem to change. Some change and go back, and Evergreen would be one of those. Hopefully we can get them moving forward again. But yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say. I'm really happy. There's lots of great things going on with the program, despite all these really tough times with healthcare, shortages, staffing, COVID. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or want to talk about Smooth Transitions at all?
Thanks so much, Melissa. I'm going to give a pause to give you a virtual round of applause. And there's a couple of questions in the chat, or maybe one question in the chat from Louisa. Yeah. Has there been any thought about the multidisciplinary review development happening in conjunction with the QMP's process?
No, I would say we haven't gotten there yet. You know, no, there hasn't been any talk about that. It's not that I'm not open to it. I think that, you know, I think we looked at it as, you know, we're going to have MOZ members having the QMP route, and their WARM has their also similar process. So this would be something, you know, more neutral and third party. I don't know how much overlap would happen between the different professional associations. At the same time, hospitals are doing their root cause analysis. So it's almost like, you know, participants are going off into their own individual kind of professional review, and this would be something additional to that, is how I'm envisioning it, but we're still like in the early stages of structuring it. We modeled it after something New England has a program there, I think about, Audrey, jump in here if I'm not saying this correctly, about 11 states to participate in something
like 3
process, and they do these neutral third-party reviews, and we modeled a lot of our work after what they do. We also consulted with folks down in Oregon that kind of informally do this within the legacy system. So we're kind of taking different parts of models and creating something that kind of fits more with what we're doing here in Washington.
So my reason for asking that question is largely because you mentioned that there would potentially be recommendations made.
Oh, yeah.
And that, you know, I'm just thinking in terms of the Morse QMP process, obviously we make recommendations in that process. I can't speak to WARM's process, but, you know, just I don't know, it seems like potentially there could be some
Overlap of work.
collaboration there.
Yeah. Yeah, that would
Particularly communication about continuing ed opportunities or something like that, Louisa.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm open to that. You know, once we get this case review launched, I would like to be in touch with the different, you know, kind of groups within Moz and WARM to see if, you know, are there themes of cases that maybe we need to put out as potential topics for conferences or trainings or something like that, or a resource that could be developed, if there is a way to kind of pull together threads like that. Any other questions?
I don't see any more in the chat, but I'll give it just a minute, Melissa, in case there are any in the audience.
Yeah, and I didn't get to the very last slide. We can, yeah, it's basically just about kind of coming back to the patient, and that this is, our program is so much about centering patients and how, you know, especially in the challenging situation of a transfer, and especially of a transfer in COVID, you know, when we have this and it works well, it really, you know, no matter what happens, you know, somebody can get us, you know, an emergency C-section, the farthest thing from what they ever envisioned happening at their birth. But if it's done well between the different providers, midwives and hospital staff, it doesn't have to be a traumatic experience, and it can really be still very positive. And that's kind of our focus. And it's been great to hear from clients on their surveys, you know, how they're valuing participating in the program, and how their surveys really do, their survey results and data really do get, you know, turned back to the hospitals, and the hospitals are really keen on listening and making changes based on patient feedback. And I really am proud of hospitals for that. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
you.
being here, Melissa. And Audrey,
Yeah.
thank you also for your expertise in jumping in. It was great to hear from Smooth Transitions and all the work you are doing, and we look forward to continuing to support all of those efforts. So thank you so much. We're going to hop back to the treasurer report. Kristen pulled up some P&Ls, so we're going to try and blow that up big enough that you can see it, and then she is available to just answer any questions you have around that before we move into committee reports.
Thanks, Jen. I just wanted to say that this is I did take the two parts and put them all together. The green is income, the purpley blue is expenses, and the orange is our net income. This does not include the November conference webinar that I haven't seen those numbers yet, but all said, it kind of blew things out of the water too. So again, you know, there's at least a month difference between getting everything reconciled and to me. So I think that the net income is probably going to be at least, I'm thinking 7,000 more from give or take.
Were there any, I know it's a little bit hard to see on the screen. It'll be available in the recording and all of that, but were there any questions about profits and losses for Kristen while she has it pulled up? You're free to unmute yourself and just hop in if you have some.
Can she scroll down? This is scrolled down. I copied and pasted all the blue expenses side by side.
Yeah, I think, Emmy, I think the bottom left column continues up on the top
Yes.
right. Like that's
That's what I'm trying
where-
to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. If folks
Sure
think
thing.
of, if folks marinate on some questions and have them later, hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end for any additional questions or comments. Okay, so moving right along into all of our committee reports, which really, frankly, keep Moz going. They all function really independently, and we're super grateful for that. So I'm going to pass it over, I believe, to Emily Stevens, who will be our outgoing data chair, amazingly and sadly, because she's just been amazing over there. So thanks, Emily, for joining us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Emily Stevens. I'm the chair of the Research and Data Committee. I have been since it was founded. I'm a consumer member of Moz, not a midwife, and I've been on the board or supporting the board for about 10 years. Go ahead with the next slide. The big thing from our committee is that after it feels like a million years of me saying, we want to be published, we want to use your data, that's the goal. We really are now. So most of you probably know that Elizabeth Nethery went ahead and used the Moz OB-COPE data, which came from Manastats, to publish an article in the Green Journal. And to our knowledge, she's the first licensed midwife, lead author to use exclusively midwifery data ever published in the Green Journal. Also, that article was highlighted as their featured article in November. So for anyone who hasn't read it, absolutely go check it out, share it with your clients, share it widely. We feel extremely proud. I can't express my gratitude enough for Elizabeth and the committee. Just years of work, and to all of you, because that's where this data all came from. We're really able to demonstrate what midwives do. It looks incredible, as we all know, demonstrate this model of care and not out into the wider medical community. So let's pause and just be grateful for this. Next slide. And then the next thing that we are doing with the committee is working towards this community birth module, which I believe you've heard some about. Also, Melissa was just talking about. So as people know, the future of Manastats, the status of Manastats is a little bit uncertain. That has been an incredible resource for the midwifery community to submit data and have a nice database to collect. And going forward, we're trying to make something even more sustainable. So this is going to be housed at the Center for Healthcare Equality, where OB-COPE, through OB-COPE. And we are in the process of developing it. As Melissa said, it's been a really kind of tedious process. We took the data collection tool that the hospital providers use for OB-COPE, and we also took the Manastats data collection tool. We combed through just line by line, looking to see what makes sense for out of hospital and midwifery providers to be using. So we're developing a tool that is really midwifery centric and relevant. And then some of the, we're trying to match up as many things with the hospital providers as possible so we can compare really easily. At the same time, we're
I'll be off
adding
at noon if you want to eat lunch together.
Oh, hi, Kristen. We're also adding our own in, as Melissa said, we're trying to really capture data on transfers and other things that the hospital providers aren't capturing right now. So that's happening. And maybe back, I don't know. And then just funding with that, we've already secured some funding to start building it. So as Melissa mentioned, it is actually in the process of being built right now at OB-COPE. And then it will take some more money to finish building it and then to maintain it. So we are pursuing a few different funding sources for this. And the idea is we are asking for funding to fund all the midwife participation in this module. So it will hopefully be free of cost to the midwives, just like ManaStax is now. We feel really strongly that that's an important piece, is to not pass the cost along to the midwives, at least for the first few years, while people are getting used to it. So that is part of what we're doing with fundraising. And I don't know if folks have any questions about the community birth module. Not sure what came up.
I don't see any questions in the chat right now, Emily, but I'll pause and open it for questions. If folks have questions or comments about data collection, the community birth module.
The other thing I will mention around that is that this is not going to be a Moz specific project. So this is going to be open to all midwives in the state at this point. And we are encouraging and wanting to work interdisciplinary with multiple organizations and groups. So we're trying to kind of move this away from just being a Moz specific responsibility and project into really capturing the data and the landscape of what everyone's doing. So we're really looking for lots of energy and from anyone who's interested in this.
Emily, I want to thank you and the data committee for all the work you did on this. I know when MANA became very uncertain, you all had to pivot quickly and figure out some other solutions for Washington midwives, given that data collection is mandatory here. And I'm so excited for what this is and where it's housed and what it represents and how inclusive it is. And I'm so grateful because I know y'all looked at a lot of options for data collection and you weighed the pros and cons and you put a lot of effort and consideration into this. And for what you're building, it's really incredible. And I would just add for folks that are on this call or listening, the last time I was at a MAC meeting, they did recognize in our regulations that data collection is tenuous right now with MANA being as it is. So there is a grace period at the moment for your licenses. If you are unable to submit data to MANA because of things beyond your control. Like I know, for example, new midwives that don't have MANA logins can't get them right now, and things like that. So just know that that is on the minds of the MAC and the Ledge Paul committee and being recognized as outside of our control. But hopefully we're going to have this amazing community birth module up and running and really capture the data that matters. So thank you for all your work on it, Emily.
Thanks, Jen. It does feel extremely gratifying. Like, you know, this has been something we've been talking about for years. And I think the idea is hopefully, and OB-COPE is really open to this, that in the future, this could be open to more than just Washington state midwives. So it could become a bigger repository for midwifery data. And the fact that it's housed at the foundation is fantastic in terms of just being solid and secure, and also that ability to work collaboratively with hospital providers and compare. It really like meshes so well with the smooth transitions work. So I feel really excited about it. And I think that's all. I have one more slide, but it's just a gratitude for this incredible group of people who's put in so much work towards this. I feel like this is one of those years that it feels so gratifying. We have something to show in this article and in this community birth module. Definitely looking for anyone else who's interested in joining. It's relevant and exciting. So that's what I have.
Thanks so much, Emily. Any questions or comments for Emily and the data committee? I see there was a question in the chat, Emily, but it looks like Audrey jumped on that answer. So thanks, Audrey. Okay. Thank you so much, Emily. We really appreciate your time and congratulations on moving on to new and exciting things. You will be a huge presence that is missed. And we've been so grateful for your leadership over at Data and on the Moz board.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. All right. And we're going to move on to the Legislative and Policy Committee. And Kristen Efland is going to present this. It's all yours, Kristen.
Thanks so much, everyone.
an awesome team for legislative committee, and hope that you
Hey,
join.
Kristen?
We love meeting.
Kristen, I apologize. You're really broken up for us.
Can you
I
not
think.
hear me?
Yeah, it was, maybe it was just me, but it was really broken up on my end.
Okay, how about, is it better?
Let's see.
Kristen, maybe try turning your camera off.
Did we lose her?
I think so. Jen, oh no, she's still there.
Hey, Jessica, can we flip flop and do membership first? And Kristen's gonna try and log on somewhere else.
Yep, just give me a second.
Yeah, you bet. It's never boring around these parts. Okay. So we'll come back to Ledge Paul. I definitely want Kristen to be able to speak to that, but we'll hop over to membership, and Jessica Swan is our vice president and our sole membership committee chair and do it all person. So Jessica, it's all yours.
Cool. Just at that moment, the person who's detailing my wife's car came up and they're chatting over there. So that's just how it's going to be working from home life. So membership committee, what does membership provide? I mean, there is no Moz without members, right? Members are the heart and soul of everything that we're doing and the reason we exist. And the membership committee is the advocate for the members. So we're making sure that you're active members so that you can participate in peer and incident review. We make sure the clinical guidelines get updated, and we do surveys to find out like where members are and what they would like more of and what they want less of and how we can support them, as well as the membership committee, of course, along with Ledge Paul and pretty much all of Moz, helps with like expanding scope and training opportunities and things like that. But we get the feedback through the membership committee that that's what our members want, and that's how we move forward with those types of things. We help keep Moz in the black by having the membership dues, which are over 50% of our operating budget. And then we maintain Wild Apricot, which is the database where members and other, not just members, but anyone that wants to find a midwife can go and find a midwife. And then also we reply to all the membership emails about becoming a member or about free first year membership or whatever might be happening, or just that people want to know about how to be a member and things like that. And then in 2022, we kept Moz in the black because you all are out there continuing to be members, and we appreciate that so much. We're improving our processes so that communication flows a bit easier. And then we processed dozens of new memberships this year, including our free first year licensed midwives and also our the free memberships that we do for student midwives and midwives of color. And we ensured that the indications document got updated. The thank you for that goes to Liz and Elliot for sure, as they spearheaded that. And we are very appreciative for all the research and the deep dive they did into that document, and then to the community for participating in the discussions around it and voting it in as with all those changes. In 2022, we plan to pretty much keep doing the same things. It would be really nice if we could increase our membership overall and also increase student membership. And with that, we just need more outreach opportunities, which means we just need more person power. So having an ED that can perhaps do some of that, along with a couple volunteers, would be really helpful to just make sure that students know about Moz, and the midwives outside of our very largely Western Washington bubble know about Moz, and that we're welcoming to all community midwives. So increased membership is definitely a goal. And then we know Wild Apricot can be a little clunky, and some of that we can't do anything about. It's just the nature of that website, but there are some opportunities to streamline it a bit. So we'll work on that. And you all may remember that last year we did the membership survey, and honestly, just with 5 members of our board leaving and with all the things that happened in 2021, we haven't had a chance to dive deeply into what people said in that survey. Definitely looked over it, and there wasn't anything outrageously alarming that needed to be dealt with in the moment, but that deserves more attention. And I'm hoping our ED can help kind of guide us into that survey and what's in there and make sure we're following along with what members have said they wanted and needed. And lastly, just what we need is I need you all to make sure that you have your membership profiles updated. I do get quite a few emails a year saying, hey, like this is outdated for me. Can you move me to a different region or update my phone number? Like, no, I can't. I mean, I could, but you can too. So please just log in to your Wild Apricot and make sure that you're up to date. Then it will, and then that way you'll be reflected on the website accurately. So it'll change it automatically if you change your region. And then also a reminder that February 15th is when auto renewals are going to occur. So if you have a credit card saved, it will auto renew you unless you go in and turn it off, or if you need to update that card, please look and do that. It's a big flurry on for that last half of February, trying to get everybody whose cards weren't righted or people who didn't want to be charged. Like it's difficult to do. So if you could just make sure that if you want to be renewed, that your card is correct and in the system, and that will renew you. And then we are definitely looking for volunteers. So yeah, if you want to volunteer with the membership committee, you can email me. My email will be in a different slide, but you can just also, if you email membership at info or at washingtonmidwives.org, that will come to me as well. So I'd be happy to have you to just do some of that outreach we were talking about. I think that's all I have. Let's see, were there questions?
There's one in the chat, Jessica, about how many professional Moz members there are currently.
Oh yeah, I think it's, well, I don't want to make up a number. So while then, Kristen, can you look? Kristen, I will send, because I can't look while I'm screen sharing.
Yes, I will look. And also the directory that is available on the site shows all the active current professional midwives.
Awesome. Do I have anything else? No. Okay, any other questions for membership / for me?
I just want to thank you, Jessica, because you called this a committee and you used the term we throughout it. But to be clear, before Jessica, this was Kristen and she held it all down herself. And now it's Jessica and she holds it all down herself. So all of those processing, the catching up on credit cards, the checking the email, the getting new members going, the sending out reminders about first year memberships. She says she means she did all of that. Like she held all of that down and Kristen held it all down before her. So this is definitely a committee that could use some support if you have a couple of hours of a month to give. It's not a tremendous amount to do some outreach. But if you are interested in participating in Moz in that way, I know Jessica would welcome some of the help on her committee of one.
For sure. And it looks like Kristen got back to us with the number of professional members 169. So it's growing a little bit every year.
Awesome.
Kristen F. Lind, are you back for Ledge Paul? We're good?
I think, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Yay.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, sorry, rural internet. I never know what you're gonna get, but it's nice to be out here and connected with the rest of you around the state. So we have our legislative and health policy team. We would love for you to be a part of it. We meet weekly and really try to, keep focused on health policy and advancing, being a part of helping advance midwives and the midwifery model of care. Next slide, please. Of course, you probably know that we do the annual Midlife Lobby Day every year, typically in Olympia. This year and last year, virtual, zooming into Olympia, which actually was great last year because more people got to participate even from really rural areas, which is awesome. But we really try to stay connected with what's going on at the Department of Health, making sure somebody, is there for the Midwifery Advisory Committee work. If there's work to be done with third-party payers, including the Healthcare Authority or others, trying to really, communicate your concerns and needs, keeping midwives and families at the forefront of those. agencies and discussions. Next slide, please. This last year, so exciting. We submitted a 134-page report to the Department of Health for the Sunrise Review. This was years in the making, and really, if you ask me, decades in the making. And so much gratitude first to Jen for her master's project, which gave us so much material to submit, and also to Britt Zell for her, follow-up master's project, because we really could just come out with so much information to say, midwifery clients deserve to have what they need when they leave our offices, even if they have mastitis that can't be treated, with phytolacca, right? Like homeopathic phytolacca, right? Like if it's come to that need for antibiotics, we want to prevent that abscess, like we should be able to hand them that prescription. They shouldn't have to go to someone else's office, right? We counsel them about birth control. If they want it, it'd be nice if they could just get it, right? Rather than have to schedule another appointment. Although it's good for business, if they don't ever schedule that other appointment, we obviously want people to have the rest they want and desire between their pregnancies. So, so exciting. And the next step with this is that the Department of Health came back and said, yes, it's true. From an equity perspective, this is really important that, that midwifery clients have this access. But we did need to address some concerns about how our midwives who want to be able to do this, who want to choose this license extension option, and offer this to their clients, how are they going to be able to, get the education and skills development that they need? And so we met with ACOG representatives, as well as ARNPs United, to make sure we could address their concerns. And then that second Department of Health report should be out anytime this month. So we'll see what happens next. And then also for this past year, we had a record turnout for our first ever virtual lobby day. And so going forward, we really envision always trying to incorporate that virtual aspect, like once we get to go back to Olympia, like bringing like an iPad in with us and say, here are some midwives and clients back home too, who couldn't join us today in Olympia. But last year was more than 150 midwives, students, and healthcare consumers, families who joined us. So we hope it'll be at least as many this year, because we'll have our bill. All right, next slide. Also to support our 134-page report to the Sunrise Review Committee, we had 2 published articles, which I sounds like Jen mentioned earlier. So exciting. This work was so cool. And if any of you are wanting to publish things that you're doing, I just love the idea of being a resource for folks. It is just so fun to collaborate and publish our work together. There was so much good work done here in 2019, and the years leading up to that, by Neva Gerke and Constance Fry, to be able to get those rule changes to our drug legend, so that our clients can have access to prenatal vitamins through a prescription right now. And, if they want to choose to do glucose pokes, for finger pokes for their glucose assessment, or if they need to because they have a GDM diagnosis, right? They no longer have to, get that prescription from someone else, which is such a hassle, right? We can get those Lancets for people. And it's not cheap, right? This is really about equity, that people have this access through us, for us to be able to write those prescriptions for things like a glucometer, right? And so we wrote about this to just let everybody know about it. So this article in Birth is open access. You can check it out. It really makes the argument for, in order for midwives to be well integrated into the healthcare system, they ought to be able to offer their clients the things they're asking for, right? If clients want access to GBS prophylaxis through their midwife, they ought to be able to have that access, right? And then the article on the top really goes deep over, and it just talks about all the years of advocacy here in Washington, but also places where the laws are better, and just that analysis of the laws. And I can get anyone that full article if you're interested in that full text. But there's a lot there, especially for folks in other jurisdictions who are wanting to change some of their own laws. Next slide, please. Also this past year, you know, this thing we have to do every 2 years, it's so important. It feels a little boring, right? Because we have to do it. Otherwise our licensing fees would be exorbitant, like thousands of dollars exorbitant. So we got that cap that we so appreciate on our licensing fees that are already feel kind of high. And thanks to the relationships that our lobbyist has built over the years, it is now part of the governor's budget, that this is just part of the budget. It's a line item that the midwives need this, they're worth it. And we'll hope that we get to continue securing that every biennium. So next slide, please. Other, you know, just bills that we did support that ended up passing, all of them, right? That additional coverage for 1 year postpartum for people that if they only qualified for Medicaid during pregnancy, they're not going to get cut off at 60 days, right? Like my PT really suffered because I had to do only 60 days, you know, when I was on Medicaid. And that's not like, you can't get all your PT sometimes right done in 60 days. So now people have that whole year of Medicaid expansion for postpartum. Also for folks who unfortunately have a stillbirth, they now can get also a birth certificate, not just a death certificate. And then also the final bill here, just making sure that, you know, if someone shows up at a hospital and they're having a miscarriage, even if it's a hospital that doesn't otherwise do, you know, terminations, that they can get the care they need and not be sent away while they're bleeding, for example. So that important provision. Next slide, please. Also, so what's coming up? Yay! We've got these 2 license extension options, right? This bill, we found our sponsor, Emily Randall, woohoo, for our bill this year. So we will be introducing this bill. And, you know, for those licensed midwives who want to complete additional training, right, they will have the option to do 1 or both license extensions. Also, if someone coming right out of school has the ability to apply for that license extension as well, that's our goal. So if you have the skills and the knowledge, right, then you can go right ahead and apply for that extension anytime. And so some people may only do 1, right, where that they can obtain and administer both hormonal and non-hormonal contraception and meds for common perinatal conditions, right? Somebody has nausea, vomiting, they really just need Zofran, they've tried everything else, right? And then also, you know, there will be skills that would have to be demonstrated for the second license extension option, and that's where we're talking about IUDs, inserts, for that long-acting contraceptives. Next slide, please. All right, also our birth center regulations. So we, it's been a long process with COVID. The Department of Health is, in that mode, but we will be continuing to pursue these changes to the birth center regulations, really, just modernizing and updating them. Anyone who's started a birth center recently or is in the process knows that there's a bunch of stuff that needs to be updated. And one of those changes that we are proposing is for vaginal birth after cesarean to be available again in birth centers. So next slide, please. That's all going to be really happening in the spring in terms of those first initial meetings. And it's just a process that just takes a long time. There's a bunch of things that need to be updated. The Department of Health is interested anytime they're updating everything to be, using that gender inclusive language. And these slides will be available on the website. So if you're wanting to actually read them, there's a bunch of stuff, right? We don't want birth centers to have to act like a hospital. They're not a mini hospital. Cynthia Flynn always says they're a maxi house, not a mini hospital, right? So a bunch of, kind of just old stuff that has to come out about, paper charting as like the assumption that that's what everyone's doing. And of course, the VBAC restrictions. Next slide, please. And so huge, can't believe I already haven't said it yet. If you haven't registered for Lobby Day, please do. It's coming up faster than usual. This is only the second time we've ever done it in January, but it is a short session. It's basically the first week of this session. But if we waited until February, we just wouldn't have anyone's attention. We are trying to get this bill in there, introduced, getting people to know about it. We've been doing that the last 2 years, but we just have to do it earlier. So here we are, we're gonna do Thursday, January 13th, and we really hope you'll make it. If you can, please register by December 10th. That way we can get those, appointments scheduled. It is possible to register after December 10th, but If you wait, it just, we're just less likely to be able to meet with our legislators. And we might have to meet with staff and whatnot. Next slide, please. It is virtual again, and it will, it starts at 8 a.m. with our briefings. Sometimes, usually, typically, appointments won't start until 9 a.m. And then we have stuff, all day, different appointments. And then I think around probably 2 p.m. we'll do our debriefing, which is usually really fun to join us. And so we'll have things going on during the day where you can plug in. You won't be stranded by yourself. You'll have at least, one other team lead with you in appointments. So please sign up. Obviously, if you're at a birth and can't make it, we understand. But please do try to register. Encourage your clients to register. And the link, maybe somebody can put it in the, yeah, it looks like maybe somebody did in the chat. That's awesome. And then if you would like to, be prepared, you can show up for our legislative agenda webinar. That's going to be the Friday before on January 7th at noon. And we will record that and send it out as well. And there's also already a video about Lobby Day. If you've never been on our website, you can just check that out and it'll give you some ideas about what to expect and how to kind of feel prepared. But really, you can just show up, and just being there is really important. You already know everything you need to know. And so we hope you'll come. Also, we've got this Momnibus out there. There's all kinds of stuff going on at the federal level. It would be so amazing if we can see movement on that. So if there's something to be done, we'll be letting you know. And again, we hope you'll come and be part of our team weekly on Zoom. Next slide, please. So much thank you to everyone. We didn't get pictures from everyone, but you can see Jen here and and some of our folks on our team. We're so lucky to have everyone. Thank you so much for all of your contributions every week. Next slide, please. Yeah, just kind of more of the same. That's it. Register, please. We hope you'll come. You just have to show up on Zoom. Thanks.
Thanks, Kristen. And I just want to take a minute to say it's really generous to call me the LegPol co-chair, because Kristen actually holds this whole committee down. I show up and float through it and like to demand some policy decisions, but Kristen is the heart and soul of the LegPol committee. She makes sure our meetings are organized. She makes sure there are agenda items. She makes sure there's a note taker. She is with Emily Brown and Anna Humphreys almost single-handedly pulling off Lobby Day. So about 2 years ago, I said to Kristen, I really need help. And I promised I would co-chair, and really she has held so much of it. And I would be lost without you, Kristen. I truly mean it. You are the glue that holds LegPol together, and I'm incredibly grateful for all the work that you do. But on that note, please help Kristen out and register by December 10th. The late registrations for Lobby Day will be accepted, but trickier. They're gonna throw the volunteer work of the 3 people organizing Lobby Day a bit into chaos. So we're trying to front load registrations to give those folks some breathing room coming into session. So even if you're on the fence about it, even if you're not sure, even if you have to check a couple things, it is still better to register, because some of these legislators we can't get meetings with unless we have constituents in registration forms. So please, the link is there, hop on it. You can do it from your pajamas, or like actually put a shirt on top and wear your pajamas on the bottom. Thanks, Kristen. Okay, any questions for Kristen, or we'll go into a lot more detail about the bill itself and the findings of the Sunrise Review during the Lobby Day prep webinar, but I know we're both happy to take any questions now about the LegPol work. Okay, great, thank you, Kristen. Okay, moving right along, let's see. We're gonna move to the quality management program, and I think Louisa,
Yes.
our new co-chair with Melanie.
Well, for a hot second, and today I am leaping into the hot seat and giving you the quick 411 on what the QMP has been doing. Jumping right in with our thorniest issue. We're really sorry for all of the drama around processing peer review certificates. Lots involved in that disaster, but we've fixed it, and there is no more paperwork for you all, none. So what we've done is made peer review 100% self-service. So there are actually a lot of other professional organizations who do this themselves as well. So we have precedent for that. The system of electronic self-service rather for peer review is in place for many other professional organizations. So if you didn't know, Liz has been helping Moores so much since really the beginning of COVID. So she's done a huge amount in multiple areas. And in this case, she has helped us figure out how to create a form that you all can jump in and fill out your survey really, really thoroughly and receive your certificates for any and all peer reviews you've done. So yay, Liz, you're amazing. Critical considerations for this. You must be an active Moores member. If any one individual present at a review doesn't hold active professional or student Moores membership, the peer review is discoverable, so not protected. So you absolutely have to make sure that every single person who is attending your peer review has active membership before you start. Make sure that you enter all of your information completely, especially your email, and then check your spam folder because that is obviously critical as well. If you have any issues with that, please contact info@Washington Midwives for further troubleshooting. All right, next slide. All right, recent research contribution. We are incredibly proud, as all of you are, to have contributed in a small but critical way to Elizabeth's research on the safety of community birth in Washington State. Mel and Marge were able to validate the statistics in a de-identified way to maintain confidentiality while authenticating her OB-COPE data into intrapartum mortality. So that was really that was a really significant contribution, and we're really happy that our systems were able to do that. Next slide. Okay, some shifts in the committee. We wanted just to acknowledge and say thank you to Christine Tyndall and Stacey Callahan, both of whom have served on the QMP for a very, very long time. And have done really amazing work. Continuing on, Laurie, Melanie, Faiza, Marge, Winnie, Lauren, and Anne. We also are joined this year by Maya Johnson, who has already kind of leapt into things and has been amazing as well. And yes, I have joined Melanie as her co-chair because she is working very, very, very hard right now. So next slide. The cases. Okay, so the QMP has received 22 self-reports and no complaint forms against Moores members since December of 2020. Of those, 8 were found to warrant review, 12 NICU admissions with 1 case of neonatal seizure, 12 cases of birth giver adverse events, 8 cases of perinatal mortality, and 1 case of birth giver maternal mortality. So all of these reviews are being held via electronic platform. They're going smoothly. Overall, the feedback has been excellent, and with the added benefit of increasing access for solo and rural midwives. So we are fortunately being able to get some, I guess, some farther afield people to participate in reviews, which it's always nice to have a good diverse cross-section of people to review cases with when it's necessary. Next slide. All right, there we go. Just your friendly QMP reminder that adverse perinatal and birth giver or maternal events need to be reported. As midwives, we're generally doing well reporting these things, but you know, just the reminder that we all recognize the need for review after these losses for a number of reasons, but we also need to consider reviewing the near misses. We can learn from those as well and really improve the care we're providing. So while peer review is obviously a great place to take your tricky cases, if you feel like you have an instructive near miss case, please consider bringing it to the QMP for review and requesting a review. This really allows us to really dig into what happened and hopefully assist you in moving forward. Next slide. Coming up, we are working on clarifying adverse events that would trigger a self-report. Some obviously will indicate an incident review, but others won't. So considerations as to which to do and which not require review, and they should include the thoroughness of the self-report, if and when transfer of care occurred, how much time elapsed between transport and the adverse event, the severity of the event, the management, including selection, client selection, sorry, of the case, and then the reporting midwife's request for review. The committee considers all of these things, and you know, using those questions largely, we make the decision about what warrants review and what doesn't. Currently, the criteria for self-report remain the same and include perinatal mortality, birth giver or maternal mortality, NICU admission, except for observation only, or in the case of a congenital anomaly, shock or ICU admission, uterine rupture, uterine inversion, and seizure in either birth giver or neonate. We expect that, next slide, sorry. We're considering moving towards 2 larger categories rather than kind of the itemized list that I just mentioned. Neonatal adverse events and birth giver adverse events. We're hoping that will allow us to clarify or at least get to those cases that really need to be reviewed and leave behind those that maybe don't so much, as in the case of, you know, a baby who winds up being born in the hospital after transfer but requires significant NICU stay or whatever afterwards. So these, we're basically trying to clarify that a little bit better. But it's actually really been hard to narrow it down. So we're open to feedback on that. Let us know if you've got any ideas. Next slide. Okay, in 2022, we really need new members in an equitable way. So previously we've been, you know, we've long recognized that our method of tapping midwives to join the QMP is actually pretty elitist. 2 years ago, we opened membership up to an application process, but received 1 applicant who sadly had a conflict of interest. We intended to systematically offer QMP membership to all MORS members, but that proved cumbersome and hasn't happened yet in a meaningful way. So yeah, we're going to be working on trying to get some new blood on the QMP. So if you're interested or you haven't had a turn in that particular role, give us a yell. So we're also we've actually we're due for a revision or a submission to the DOH of our governing document, but we have we've postponed that just to give us a little bit of extra time post-COVID to get our ducks in a row. QMP orientation for new MORS members is being worked on largely to increase transparency, accessibility, and familiarity with self-report, incident review, and peer review processes. A couple of things happened this year in the context of reviews that made it very clear to us that a lot of new midwives, particularly those who are coming through alternate routes, or even our CNM members, are not being they don't know about the QMP or the MORS requirement to self-report these sorts of things. So we're really going to be looking at new ways to ensure that all of the midwives in our community have access to that information and know what their the benefits and responsibilities are of MORS membership. Next slide. Special thanks as ever to Liz Fay, who has been an amazing help both in morale and boosting energy and in her tech skills. Without her, we would not have our fancy new peer review certificate generating form, which will change the lives of everyone. Also, thank you to Mel's Kid, who helped with the slide presentation and is, in this case, responsible for all the flowers. So thanks for that, Beetle. Excellent work. Next slide. Thanks for all the work that all of you do for your communities, your ongoing commitment to improving care for birthing families. We appreciate it, and yeah, onwards. Next slide. If you have any questions, this is Melanie's email. I should have thrown mine on there as well. If you don't have it, ping me. I will happily share. Yeah, we're here. We would love some excellent help, and excellent. That's it. That's all I got from the QMP.
Thanks, Louisa. There's a question in the chat for you.
Okay, I'm looking.
From Melissa, were 8 perinatal mortalities higher than normal?
Yeah, they were. Yes, they were. Can we draw any conclusions from that? No. That's why we have the data committee.
What's an average like over time? Is it kind of like double, or what's the perspective on that?
I don't have the master graph in front of me.
Yeah.
I understand that it is, I think, kind of when seen from the macro, from the number of years that the QMP has existed, I would say it's roughly, you can't quote me, but it is several fold higher than the previous decade or so of QMP reports.
So that's just data from 2020 or 2021?
2021.
2021, just MOS members.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that in the Elizabeth's paper, there were 4 perinatal deaths in 5 years. So that is definitely that's definitely an increase.
It is a substantial jump.
Yeah, Louisa, I have a question too. I remember years ago, a few years ago, I was talking to Melanie about having, she was just starting to work with Marge, I think, on like connecting with WARMS QMP and kind of jointly, you know, kind of, I don't know, collaborating or trying to find themes. Has that gone anywhere?
I know that it's definitely something that it kind of sits, it sort of hovers somewhere on between the burners. It is, I think, always a challenge to get busy midwives in different organizations to sit down together. I know it's definitely something that she's been working on, but I don't have any more update than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd just like to kind of keep in touch with that. I just communicate with both groups, so just trying to stay on the same page. And
yeah, I mean, it absolutely
together.
It is absolutely something that that Melanie, I know, has really wanted to work on. One of the things that I'm hoping to do given that my practice volume is so much smaller than hers is that I'm hoping actually that I can be useful in helping her get to some of the things that she hasn't been able to recently, so that we can, you know, keep moving things forward. So I will chat to her about that and see if we can't push it onto the front burner.
Yeah, and let me know if you need help, because I feel like I'm in touch with their board too, as
Great.
a program, and they're pretty open to hearing what I have to say too. So
Yeah, I'm excited about those opportunities as well.
okay.
And when, oh, sorry. I'm wondering.
Any other questions?
It's a little bit less of a question and more of just a thinking, you know, just a reminder that this is, you know, it's a snapshot in time. I think people know this, but right, like we, you know, it's a pandemic, like who knows what. And so to just like take that larger view, so grateful to the data committee, right, that we have information about like a 5-year period. But also just putting out there, I really love what the UK does with mortality. And maybe just like a long time, I know we all have too much going on as it is, but like maybe a long-term, you know, idea about like looking at 10 years and kind of saying, what can we learn from this? And I know we already do it in a haphazard sort of way, like, hey, let's do a continuing education on this. But I find it really valuable to go in and like read what the UK says, like, oh, in this case, the intermittent auscultation could have been improved, right? Like, what can we all learn, and what ways can we all learn from, you know, and not have to make, you know, have things happen that happen to someone else. We all are learning all the time anyway. I just wanted to put that out there.
I agree, and especially working with hospitals that seem in some cases willing to do shared trainings with community midwives and bringing them on as team members. I would love to be in the loop of that and can maybe try to have it happen at certain places.
Awesome. Louisa, thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you for stepping up to co-chair. I know Mel and I share the same feeling of like, who wants to help? So I really appreciate you doing that. And I just wanted to reiterate, again, apologies for the dysfunction that the peer review certificates have been. We take full responsibility. We know it got dropped, and I'm grateful that we have some innovative new processes in place, but we are still cleaning some of that up. So if you are missing certificates, please email Melanie's email, CC Jessica on it, and the info address, and we will get them taken care of ASAP. So thank you so much. Okay, moving.
Actually, sorry, can I just quickly correct that? If you require, so Brielle is going to be sending out a link to the form that will allow you to get your own peer review certificates. So keep your eye out for the link, go get them yourself. That way you don't have to send emails to anyone who can't actually do anything with them. Okay.
Okay. All right, moving to continuing education, and Sunita, I'm going to pass it over to you. Formerly conference, we now call it continuing education because turns out in a pandemic you can't have conferences. So
can you hear me okay? I'm using my phone audio for this. Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Since I am mostly out of time already, I will move as quickly as I can. All right. This is our Continuing Education Committee. So Liz Fay, myself, Elliot, and Lisa Stotts have all been working very hard in this last year to pivot and shift the way that you're all receiving your continuing education in light of not being able to have an in-person conference. Oh, you're switching my slides. Go ahead. Super. So we have had a lot of really great successes this year, which contribute to a lot of the work that Moz is able to do, namely being able to bring in a part-time executive director. And that is in large part to the great success of the online pivot and the ability to offer webinars. So a couple of bullet points there really quickly. We've been able to create training videos for the purpose of QMP based on some of the topics that were hot points in both the QMP process, but as well as for people in our committee. Expanding geographic reach. In one of the webinars, if you may have participated, there was a map of where everyone was participating from, and we've literally had people from New Zealand, from Brazil, obviously from all over the United States, throughout all our Canadian provinces, and that was really exciting to be able to shift not only the participation, but really the access for, what has always been really challenging with our in-person conferences in having people just on the other side of the mountains or in other counties and being on call, right? And so this is here to stay. I'll let you know that. And whether or not we bring back in-person events, which was one of the questions that you were asked to answer after the last webinar, is going to be in large part due to interest. Some of the other things were the improved registration platform, and one of the great additions was the green bottle access, which some of you may have utilized or been familiar with, which allowed people to pay varying levels of registration fees. And I just want to let you know that there were a significant amount of people who paid the requested registration fee, the vast majority. There were a significant amount of people who paid the pay it forward fees. And then that also allowed people to utilize other payment structures or other fees to be able to participate given their own financial situations, which was fantastic. And really it leveled out. If anything, broke slightly better than even if you think about the registration fee. So that was pretty exciting too, just to be able to offer that. We've talked about, how to impact cost and access for these things. And so the geographic piece and the cost piece really were incredibly successful endeavors. That comes from the wide creative thinking of the people, who come after us. There's always lots of respect that I have, for all of us who've been doing this work for a long time. And I love having new energy and new minds come to this work because they bring creative solutions like this. So transcriptions, recordings, and one really excellent thing that got to happen because we were able to produce some cash was we got to pay someone to actually create a video for potential speakers and registered speakers on how to weave diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout their content. Not just like one little like, oh, and by the way, this is different for people with other circumstances. Ta-da! I did diversity, inclusion, and equity, but really how to embed that into their work. And so that training video is now produced and available to our board and for our conference committee to be able to utilize in sort of outgoing and partnerships. We did t-shirt hoodie sales. If you guys didn't get yours, we're going to do those again this year. And we got to pay people more equitably. I mean, personally, I've been a speaker for Moz a couple of times and wasn't paid. That's fine. All of the work for Moz is, not necessarily paid for us, but we were able to pay speakers, and that's really cool because that wasn't true for like 20 years. So it's really excellent to be able to, it's not maybe commensurate with the amount of hours that might go in and they could make somewhere else clinically, but it is definitely more than a token. It's something to express our appreciation for their expertise. Next slide. I think that we have hearted these two people all day, and I just want to do it again. Liz and Elliot are two exceptional thinkers and contributors to this committee and the work that we do to create, plan, chase after speakers, run the entire day in terms of the webinar, the transcriptions, the recordings, the follow-up, the CE certificates, writing questions together so that we can offer CEs afterwards. And so I just want to really extend all the gratitude and acknowledgement to these two people for the work that they do. Lisa and I do a lot of work too, and yay, yes, but I just want to make sure that we really, really recognize the people who are bringing it to this organization. And really, I love acknowledging people who are coming after us because they're the engine that's going to keep this thing running. Next slide. All right, looking ahead into this upcoming year, we have a couple of proposed topics. We still have to go through all the feedback from the last webinar, which just was on the 19th. So we didn't have as much time to go through the commentary, but we are putting together the lineup for next year. We already have probably 3 or 4 really great webinars. We're also determining how many is reasonable in terms of what people need. We'll retain the webinar format. It's not going anywhere. And revisiting some of the topics that are also coming up through the QMP process and through the peer review process. Like many committees, I want to submit a call to action. This committee is super fun. We get to create and cultivate what we all get to learn about. And in my opinion, kind of the dynamism of our, participate the dynamism of our profession going forward. It is a very future thinking committee in that way, as are a lot of things. And we get to engage in a lot of really creative thinking now that there are so many more tools in online content delivery. So if you don't have to be a member of the board to be part of this committee. In fact, I am the only board member on this committee. So you can participate with us. And yes, there's a lot of logistics work, but it's also a lot of fun. So this is our email address, moz.conference.committee@gmail.com. You are also welcome to reach out to us individual members and we will route you in the right place. And yes, same for Ledge Paul. You also do not need to be a board member. The same is true for data. So there are, being part of the committees in general, I'll just put this as a general plug, you don't necessarily have to be a board member. And I think that's a really fantastic way to offer your skill set, your expertise, and your interests to this work without necessarily feeling like you have to hang with us every month, although we're pretty cool. That's all. Did I nail it? Time-wise?
Nailed it.
As I could.
Thanks,
All right,
Sunita,
cool.
for really taking a whole tremendous year of accomplishments and cramming it down into about 4 minutes of presenting. Probably doesn't do you justice for all the work that y'all did. And frankly, for creating a pathway that an executive director is a reality for us. So thank you for that and for putting Moz very much on the national and international continuing education map. So we are so appreciative of all the 4 of you do. Okay, I committed to getting you out of here by noon. I thought it would be earlier, but I'm still committed to noon. So we're gonna move to our last couple of slides. Just some reminders. There were a few action items. Register for Lobby Day by December 10th. Remember, that's a really critical deadline for us to be able to get in with legislators and to make it so that Ledge Paul doesn't pull our hair out scheduling things. Please make sure you vote for Natalie. She will be a tremendous asset to our work and to the childbearing community here in Washington State. So let's welcome her to our board. We are still looking for our executive director. That position is still open. Applications can go through the Gmail address there, moz.applications@gmail.com. But we are also looking for an ED hiring committee. We can do that as a board. We would rather it come from the community. So we are looking for members that would love to dedicate, we're estimating about 8 to 10 hours over the next month to interview and make some decisions about hiring an executive director. So if you are interested in that, please also send your interest to the moz.applications@gmail. We're just gonna keep it all in one place. We're also still looking for Lobby Day team leads. We would love to get folks all over the state doing this, especially because it's virtual. Even if you've never led a team before, we will brief you and prep you and walk you through it. So if you can be a Lobby Day team lead, please reach out to me or to Kristen or the info@ address sooner rather than later, again, so that we can start to formulate teams. All of our committees are always welcome to welcoming new members. We love committee involvement, but specifically, if you would like to join Jessica's committee of 1 over at membership, she would happily take the help. And data will be looking for some new members as well, especially with Emily stepping down. We would love to have some more people contributing to our data work. And please spread the executive director position far and wide. It is up on our website. And we are really excited to get that taken care of by the end of the year. Next slide, Jessica. Just a few important dates. Our legislative agenda webinar, and there'll be a team lead briefing afterwards on January 7th from 12 to 1. January 13th from roughly 8 to 4 will be our virtual midwife lobby day. You will get so many reminders, but please make sure your information is current on Wild Apricot so that you can get those. And hopefully we will see you at those things. It is 12:01. I am happy to stay on and take any other questions or comments. I apologize that we went a minute over, but I will be here if folks have any other questions and comments. And if not, thank you so much for taking 2 hours out of your morning to be here. Thank you so much to all of our committee chairs for taking the time to present and for the work you do holding down Moz and all that it is accomplishing. So my gratitude to all of you, and I will hang out if there are any questions or comments.